Let's get started with Division A. So in week 2, we saw Deceptive Cadence match up against El Pollo Triste. Deceptive Cadence getting the sweep in that set, winning on Arabia and winning on Nomad. In the next set, we saw Morris Pipers match up against Maga y Paula. Morris Pipers taking the first game on Arabia, dropping the second game on Nomad, and then ultimately winning Game 3 on Acropolis by admin decision. And finally, we had Cappy Carrot matched up against Maswi A. Cappy Carrot getting the sweep, 2-0 win on Arabia and Nomad. And then finally, we had a bye week for MPCC. So the standings going into week 3, we had Deceptive Cadence holding on to their 1 seed, followed by Morris Pipers, Magi Ipala, Cappy Carrot, and then finally El Pollo Triste, MPCC, and Maswi A. So we had a clash of the Titans, Deceptive Cadence versus Morris Pipers. Deceptive Cadence taking game 1 on Arabia, dropping game 2 on Nomad. That brought us to a decider on Acropolis, and Morris Pipers finally dethroning Deceptive Cadence from the 1 seed. Morris Pipers taking the match on Acropolis to win the set. Then we had a matchup between Magi y Paula and El Pollo Triste. Magi y Paula took game 1 on Arabia, dropped game 2 on Nomad, and came back to win game 3 on Acropolis to take the set 2-1. And then finally, Cappy Carrot, once again adding another win to their resume, taking on MPCC. And we had a similar result to the previous set, taking game 1 Arabia, dropping game 2 Nomad, and taking game 3 on Acropolis. So all 3 sets during week 3 had exactly the same pattern: Arabia, Nomad, Acropolis. So those 3 maps have been very popular in Division A. And Maswi A with the bye week in week 3. So that left us with the following standings going into week 4. Morris Pipers in the 1 seed, followed by Deceptive Cadence, Cappy Carrot, Magia Ipala, El Pollo Triste, MPCC, and Maswi A. But the sad news is that the 5 through 7 seeds are already eliminated. The teams are fixed for the playoffs. It will be Morris Pipers, Deceptive Cadence, Cappy Carrot, and Magia Ipala going into the playoffs. Week 4 will just determine the seeding. Next, we come to Division B. Division B, we saw a matchup between the 1 seed and the 4 seed, Plateau versus Cot. Plateau taking game 1 on Arabia, dropping game 2 on Golden Pit, and finally winning the set on African Clearing. So Plateau over Cot. Next, we had Zever B up against Berserker Gang. Zever B taking Arabia, dropping Mega Random, and taking Acropolis to win that set 2-1. And finally, we had a matchup between Mr. and Mrs. against the Imposters. Imposters taking game 1 on Arabia, but then dropping games 2 and 3 to Mr. and Mrs. on Gold Pit and Arena. And finally, we had a bye week for Noobs for Life. So going into week 3, that left the seeding as follows: Plateau in the 1 seed, followed by Zever B, Berserker Gang, Mr. and Mrs., Cot, Noobs for Life, and Imposters. So we had a matchup between the 1 seed and the 2 seed, Plateau versus Zever B, to see who would maintain that 1 spot. And it was Plateau. They dropped game 1 on Arabia, but they came back to win games 2 and 3 on African Clearing and Acropolis. Then we had a matchup between Berserker Gang and Noobs for Life. Noobs for Life taking game 1, but dropping games 2 and 3 to the Berserker Gang. And then finally, a matchup between Cot and Mr. and Mrs. Cot getting the sweep on Arabia and Arena. And finally, we had a bye week for Imposters. So the seeding going into week 4, we have Plateau in the 1 seed, followed by Zever B, Berserker Gang, Cot, Mr. and Mrs., Imposters, and Noobs for Life. And I believe that the 4 teams in the 1 through 4 spots are a lock for the playoffs. Cot and Mr. and Mrs. can finish with the same number of points, but I believe the tiebreaker would go to Cot. Kot had the head-to-head win versus Mr. and Mrs. So I think week 4 will just be a fight for playoff seeding. That brings us to Division C. So in week 2, we had a matchup between Chiramoyos and the Lonely Petards. Lonely Petards taking game 1 on Arabia, dropping game 2 on Arena, and taking game 3 on Gold Pit. So Lonely Petards with the 2-1 victory on that set. Next up, we had SJWB against Multi-Kill. Multi-Kill taking game 1 on Arabia, SJW taking game 2 on Nomad, and the decider on Gold Pit was taken by Multi-Kill. Then we had a matchup between Templarios de Maswi and Mestari Army. Templarios taking that set 2-0 on Arabia and Steppe. And finally, we had an admin win for Tiger Nope over the Emu Warriors. So going into week 3, the seedings looked as follows. Multi-Kill in the 1 seed, followed by Lonely Petards, Chiramoyos, Templarios de Maswi, SJW, Tiger Nope, Emu Warriors, and Mestari Army. So that left the 1 and 2 seeds facing off. Multi-Kill versus Lonely Petards. Lonely Petards getting the sweep on Arabia and African Clearing. Chiramoyos facing up against Templarios de Maswi, and Templarios getting the sweep on that one on Arabia and Arena. Next, we had a set between SJW and Tiger Nope, and Tiger Nope getting the sweep themselves on Arabia and Nomad. So the week of sweeps, with one exception, we had a match between Emu Warriors and Mestari Army. Mestari Army taking game 1 on Arabia, dropping a pretty wild and fun game 2 on Migration, and then finally winning the decider over the Emu Warriors on Steppe. So the seeding going into week 4, we've got Lonely Petards in the 1 seed, followed by Multi-Kill, Templarios de Maswi, Tiger Nope, SJW, Chiramoyos, Mestari Army, and Emu Warriors. And I believe in this division, the teams are not locked in to the playoffs. So there's a number of possible scenarios that could result here. So week 4 will be very important. All right, Division D. So Division D, this has been the admin win-loss division. We've had more admin wins and losses, I think, in this division than all the others put together. Week 2, we had a set between MCM, the 1 seed, and GBA, the 4 seed. MCM taking that set 2-1, taking game 1 on Arabia, dropping game 2 on Gold Pit, and taking game 3 on Arena. Every other match was decided by an admin win. We had the sleeper with an admin win over Nameless, PDU with an admin win over Kusil and Cat, who ended up withdrawing from the tournament. Infinite Odyssey with an admin win over Nomad D's Nuts. And then a bye week for Sean and Sloan. So going into week 3, we had the sleeper in the 1 seed, followed by MCM, PDU, Infinite Odyssey, GBA, the Nameless, Sean and Sloan, and Nomad D's Nuts. And week 3 saw a number of admin wins and losses. Again, the sleeper taking an admin loss against MCM. So that'll drop sleeper out of the 1 seed. PDU winning a 2-0 set over GBA. PDU taking game 1 on Arabia and taking game 2 on Arena. We had another admin win for the Nameless over Infinite Odyssey. Infinite Odyssey withdrawing from the tournament as well. And then we had maybe the craziest set I've seen so far in this tournament. A set between Sean and Sloan and Nomad D's Nuts. So game 1 on Arabia, Nomad D's Nuts took the game. Franks and Britons versus Lithuanians and Malians. Sean and Sloan going for a Drush fast castle into Lightus and Gabetto. Yes, unsurprisingly, did not work out for them. They lose game 1, but they were not done. They were going to stick with the unique unit only strategy on Hideout. So Hideout, Sean and Sloan with Slavs and Ethiopians up against Khmer and Chinese. The Slavs player going into Fast Castle straight into Boyar, and the Ethiopians player going fast castle drop into Shotel Warriors. But Sean and Sloan did take that match. So that brought us to a decider on Nomad. And this was another wild one. But the set did go to Sean and Sloan. And that brings us to the following ranking going into week 4. MCM in the 1 seed, followed by PDU, the Sleeper, the Nameless, Sean and Sloan, GBA, and Nomad D's Nuts. So MCM and PDU are a lock for the playoffs, but the 3 and 4 seeds remain up for grabs. So a lot hangs on week 4. That brings us to Division E. So going into week 2, we had the Respect team facing up against Free and Keen. Respect team sweeping that set on Arabia and Acropolis. Next, we had Chirimoyo Blondo up against Gods of Egypt. And that was a 2-1 victory for Chirimoyo. They took game 1 on Arabia. Gods of Egypt taking game 2 on Nomad. And the decider on Hideout was taken by Chirimoyo Blondo. Then we had Templarios del Gentonic taking a game from Age of Innsbruck via admin win, and finally a bye week for DK Moyos. So going into week 3, the seeding looked as follows. Respect team in the 1 seed, followed by Chirimoyo Blondo, Free and Keen, Templarios del Gentonic, Gods of Egypt, DK Moyos, and Age of Innsbruck. So the 1 and 2 seed facing off, Battle of the Titans, Respect team sweeping that one, winning game 1 on Arabia and game 2 on Arena. The 3 seed, Free and Keen, facing off against DK Moyos, and we ended up there with a draw, the first draw that's been awarded by admin win this season. So each team in that case earning half a point. So not as good as a win, not as bad as a loss. Then we had the 4 and 5 seeds matching up against each other. Templarios del Gentonic versus Gods of Egypt. Templarios taking game 1 on Arabia. Gods of Egypt taking game 2 on Nomad. And the decider on Arena taken by Gods of Egypt with a really fun Pulls Tower Rush. So going into week 4, that leaves the seeding as follows. Respect team in the 1 seed, followed by Chirimoyo Blondo, Gods of Egypt, Free and Keen, DK Moyos, Templarios del Gentonic, and Age of Innsbruck. And a lot depends on week 4 for this division. I think this is the division that has the most in the air. Respect team has clinched a playoff berth, I believe, but I think all of the other spots are up for grabs in this division. In most cases, a win will get a team into the playoffs and a loss will keep a team out of the playoffs. So we will certainly be keeping an eye on that one. And finally, we come to Division F. So week 2, we had a matchup between the 1 seed and the 2 seed. Salsa Puedes and the 1 seed up against OBJA. And OBJA getting the sweep 2-0 on Arabia and Arena. Next, we had the 3 and the 4 seed up against each other. Los Tercios against Seki Gaming Esports. And that was an admin win for Los Tercios. Finally, we had Ryodan up against Mascarela. Mascarela taking game 1 on Arabia, dropping game 2 on Gold Pit, and ultimately winning the set on Nomad. So Mascarela over Ryodan, and we had a bye week for Ryodan B. So going into week 3, the rankings looked as follows. OBJA in the 1 seed, Los Tercios in the 2, followed by Salsa Puedes, Mascarela, Ryodan B, Seki Gaming, and Ryodan. So again, we had a matchup between the 1 and 2 seed OBJA versus Los Tercios. OBJA with yet another sweep, winning on Arabia and Acropolis. Salsa Puedes faced off against Ryodan B, the 3 versus the 5, and Ryodan B, the underdog, with the sweep on Arabia and Arena. And finally, we had Mascarela up against Seki Gaming, Mascarela with a sweep as well, winning game 1 on Arabia and game 2 on Team Islands. So going into the final week of the group stage, here are the standings. OBJA followed by Los Tercios GG, Masquerela, Ryodan B, Salsa Puedes, Ryodan, Seki Gaming, Esports. So the top 4 teams are almost a lock. There is, however, one very interesting possible outcome that we could have here. If Ryodan B loses in their upcoming set, and Ryodan A wins, we could have a situation where Ryodan slips into the 4 seed. We can actually have a very weird situation where all 3 of the tiebreakers that are listed in the handbook would not settle a tie between Ryodan A and Ryodan B. They never played in the head-to-head, so that tiebreaker isn't there. There's a situation where they have the same Buchholz score, and a situation where they have the exact same number of games won per set played. If that happens, we'll have to have a either a 1-game tiebreaker or a best of 3 tiebreaker. But we will see what happens there. I'm excited to keep my eye on that. And yeah, that's a fun possible outcome. Let's take a look finally at the maps and civs that have been picked so far in the tournament. So Nomad has been the crowd favorite. That's been played 17 times. Arena, a close second. That's been played 15 times, followed by Acropolis with 12 games. Gold Pit with 9. And then there's no other map that's been played more than 5 times. And still, Fortress, Baltic, and Socotra receiving absolutely no love in this tournament. They have been played 0 times. As for the civs, last time we took a look at which Cav civs and which Archer civs have been most popular. On the Cav side of things, the Franks have run away with the competition. They've been played 37 times. The second most played Cav civ has been Indians with 18 games played. On the Archer side, Ethiopians leading the pack, 32 games played, Mayans with 25 games played, and the Britons with 19.